are recording my new work called Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue with soloist Jeffrey Biegel. We are recording my new work called Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue with soloist Jeffrey Biegel and the London Symphony Orchestra at Air Studios, Lyndhurst Hall. And this will be released in conjunction with the centennial of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which is in February 2024.
I've always had a very strong relationship with the music of George Gershwin, and I grew up playing Rhapsody in Blue in all its guises, from the simplest to the most complex. But then I realized that the centennial was coming up, and how can we celebrate the centennial? And I felt with a new piece of music by a living composer.
So my first reaction was, he's crazy, because how can I, as an American composer, attempt to write a piece that is going to invite comparisons to a unique piece of music? And so I really kind of turned him down initially, but he convinced me that he thought that I was the right composer to undertake this challenge. So I wanted to find a way to acknowledge that this was a Gershwin companion piece, tip my hat to George in some way, and there's one fairly substantial section of the piece which is a kind of bluesy scherzo. That is where we get this quasi-Gershwin music.
Peter has a wonderful way of writing music that is very appealing to people everywhere, but in particular, the American landscape.
The rhythms felt very natural to play, and it was just great fun, actually. I think there was really great writing for all of the instruments. It certainly kept us busy for the few hours that we had.
In less than 4 hours, we were able to record this entire piece, and it sounds like it's been around for 100 years, like Rhapsody in Blue. It's fabulous.
This was the first time today that I conducted this piece. There's a certain amount of pressure involved with all of that, but it all went extremely well, and I think part of that is because Jeffrey is just so committed to the music. There's no big ego, there's no airs, there's no pretension. We just did it.
It's been an honor to do this project with the London Symphony.
Knowing that we're putting down the definitive version is really special.
You know, there's so much planning that goes into something like this, so much preparation, and then the moment finally arrives, and I have to try to both work hard and focus and do my job on the podium, but also I think it's so important to try to enjoy that moment.
Working with the London Symphony was quite incredible.
It's my third time recording with them, and each one has felt like a very special experience.
Okay, I'm Barry Lenson from Classical Archives. Great pleasure to welcome Jeffrey Biegel to the Classical Archives vlog. It's been long overdue. Many of Jeffrey's recordings have been among our favorites, and at Classical Archives, as also clearly a lot of other people's as well. And like the famous Steinway Christmas album and other recordings. Just, really have loved so much of your stuff. So I apologize for taking so long to get you on here.
Oh, not at all. It was the right time for everything.
Okay, that's a good outlook. We were saying that you're teaching in Maine and have been for about a week. So let me just ask you again where you're teaching, and also you have an extraordinary concert tonight. So let me just ask about those.
Well, I only taught one master class, which was really
Oh,
nice yesterday. It was fun. Really, really nice to do that. I mean, you don't get a lot of time to impart, 5 decades worth of what you've learned in 15 minutes, but you get a lot out of it. Actually, it's quite nice, and the kids are great. And from ages 8 to 18, and then there's faculty members from all over the country. And so I'm here basically the week since Tuesday. We started rehearsals Wednesday and Thursday and today. And tomorrow night's the concert outdoors of the New England premiere and Maine state premiere of Peter Boyer's Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. Simon Goyo's conducting, and the orchestra's fabulous. He's a Venezuelan conductor who's based in the States now. And he just got a job at University of Texas in Denton, and also is assistant with Hector Guzman and Plano Symphony. He's fabulous. Wonderful violinist, has a trio of his own. He's doing a lot. And he does such a great job with this orchestra. I mean, they finished the rehearsal today. I said, you guys sound like the London Symphony. This is really quite fabulous. So looking forward to that tomorrow night, just making the rounds to the state premieres of this Rhapsody National Initiative. So it's really been nice here. I have a nice lake and the trails, and it's been a little hot sometimes, some thunderstorms. It's when, it's more about the woods than it is about us. And we're just kind of visiting the nature's world. And it's really quite nice. It's the oldest music camp since 1937, New England Music Camp. And it's quite nice, really nice.
that's great. There is something special about outdoor music in New England in the summer, so that's fabulous.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you about where you're from originally and how you began to become a musician and who you studied with, and kind of historical questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah. They are historical. Going back to the early 60s, I'm from Long Island. I still live in Long Island and married with two sons. They're older now. One is a surgeon and others an attorney, and they're both musically inclined. The younger one is the attorney. He's plays percussion in the South Shore Symphony in Long Island, a terrific orchestra. And I basically started out not able to hear. So became a parent to my parents when I was about 3, and they took me to various physicians. They thought I was lazy and would grow out of it, but one smart doc told them that I just couldn't hear. I wasn't answering questions. And I
Boy,
wasn't being defiant or anything. They faced me to the wall, and I couldn't answer. And that's when they realized. So I had surgery for that. And then I could start to hear, and I went to the piano. My oldest sister played piano very beautifully. She had a beautiful touch. My father used to say, listen to how she plays that with so much feeling. And I told her that recently she came to one of the concerts of the Peter Boyer piece in Massachusetts. And in front of the audience, I had her stand, just when we were doing the pre-concert lecture. I said, she's why I'm playing. I mean, it was an honor for me to be able to play the piece and have her there, because she was one of the inspirations of that time. And my mom used to sing just for fun, but she had a beautiful voice, just never had an education in it, just very natural. And my father followed his father's footsteps in the New York City Police Department. So my father was actually the youngest captain appointed to the NYPD, believe it or not.
wow. Wow.
And so he loved music. When he went back in the 1970s to Queens College to get his bachelor's degree in political science, his minor was in music. I think Joe Mackless was his teacher. I said, oh my gosh. And he loved Rhapsody in Blue. And it took me about 40 some odd years until he finally says, you finally got it. Because he knew style. Well, because we learned Rhapsody in Blue coming from the classical school.
Right.
So to let your hair down and play, the dances and the Charleston and the ragtime and the Freilich and the Kazatsky and whatever. I know so much more about Rhapsody in Blue now than I did back then. But they loved music and they were very nurturing. So I had lessons with a local teacher who was from, he was the head of the music in one of the towns nearby. And his name was Carl Hupprich. Nobody would know who he is unless they knew him back then. But he taught me for 2.5 years. He said, I'm not starting you on lessons till you're 7 and you know how to read, so that you could read the music books. I started with the John Champre A book, the green book, then the A red book, and the B blue book, and the C purple. D was orange, I think. I remember the colors. And then I went into Clementi Sonatinas, went into the AMSCO piano pieces for children, piano pieces for adults, grades 1, 2, 3, 4. Canon, all the exercises. He taught me scales, arpeggios, everything in 2.5 years. All 12 Clementi Sonatinas, opus 36, 37, 38. They're 12. And I ended up playing Revolutionary Etude Chopin. Then he sent me to Morton Estrin, who lived in Hicksville. And then I was with him for 6 years. And then at age 16, well, before that, I played for my grandmother's cousin, Dr. Sonia Slayton Lewis. She got married in her 60s, Joe Lewis. And she was a professor of musicology at Brooklyn College. She studied with Erwin Freundlich and James Friskin. And she went to Columbia and Juilliard, got her PhD in musicology. She did her dissertation on Schenkerian analysis. Her music was marked up like a mathematician, but she played, and I played for her. Finally, I was about 15 going on 16, and she sent me to Augustin Anievis, who was a pupil of Adele Marcus, and he, won the Leventritt, the Queen Elizabeth, recorded all the Chopin etudes. His etudes recording on Seraphim is just a benchmark. It's incredible. And did a lot of performing and recording. So I played for Gus, and then he actually said to my parents, I want him to play for my teacher, Adele Marcus, because I think maybe he should play for her. So I played for her, and the people who knew who Adele Marcus was, she was tough, but she was great.
Mhm.
She really knew. She knew everything about sound and style and phrasing. You couldn't get away with anything. Very old school. And so I went to play for her, and I said, well, I have the third movement of the Chopin E minor concerto. She says, oh, do you always start with the last movement, dear? Well, we've had lots of run-ins. She didn't pull any punches with her students. She wanted to be their worst critic nightmare. She wanted to give you the review you never wanted to see someone else write about you, which is true. She understood the business. And she used to say things, you need to feel felt. Not like, don't expect that the world's your oyster and you're just going to get everything handed to you. That's very rare when that happens. I've seen careers where that happens. And in a way, yeah, sure, it's great, but hers was more like you need to work for it. And I remember playing for Isaac Stern once. We read through some Brahms D minor sonata, Schubert Fantasy. He said, beautiful playing, tapped me with his bow. He says, it's beautiful playing, you need to struggle. I was like, what? And I get it. I'm 63 now. I get it. And I used to have lessons with Adele, and she would play. And her sound, anybody who knew about who she was, she had the sound. There was a sound she had, nobody had. Nobody. Not even the greatest pianists in the world. Horowitz taught Byron Janis because of her. He heard Byron play when he was 16. And he went backstage. He couldn't believe what he heard. Rachmaninoff second in Pittsburgh. He wasn't going to go. They told him to go hear it. His train was late. He says, that's the best I've heard of this piece. Rachmaninoff's second concerto. And he met Adele Marcus, and she played for him. He says, how do you get that sound? Show me, what do you do? I mean, she had a certain flexibility in her body and her wrist, and her fingers were like singing voices. And I learned a lot from her about all of that. And I said, I just can't get that. She says, well, dear, there is no substitute for living. In
Well,
other words, she was 70. I mean, you have to go through life. I had a piano technician, Steve Burrell. Steve used to do tunings for Glenn Gould's recording sessions and Rubinstein. And he said, it's interesting. The piano is like a mirror, the keyboard. It reflects everything about the person playing it. I never forgot that line. There are lines I'll never forget. Adele would say, don't just see it, but look at it. Don't just hear it, but listen to it. And a lot of things that I took from my lessons with her and translated into my teachings to get the point across. Like I would always ask students, do you sing out loud when you practice? Because to me, that's, I said yesterday, your voice is your own best teacher, honestly. If you could sing it, you could play it. Play what you sing. Sing what you see and play what you sing. And, the keys have separations. Your fingers have separations between them. Our job is to seal the gaps. The only way to do that is by singing. Make music from your body and let the fingers follow your voice like the leaves on the tree. They're connected through branches. Your fingers are connected through branches. So those little things tweak students' performances immediately. Like yesterday, both kids played. It was immediate. It didn't even take them work to make it work. It was just those concepts totally transform the playing. It just makes it so much more natural. So that's my upbringing. I never told Adele Marcus that I couldn't hear as a child. Maybe that would have helped, but I don't think it would have changed the way she taught me. She wouldn't have substituted her intensity based on a handicap. She would have been just as forthright because the music was number one. What I learned from her is it's not about you. And it's all about the music, all about being part of the evolution of music. And that's kind of how I based my life as a musician and pianist in that order. Even in all the commissioning projects for 25 years, I say to composers, this isn't about me. I don't want them to think I'm doing this for me. I once had a conductor write to me and says, oh, you're doing this because you want to get work. And I wrote back, I said, I'd rather fling burgers in McDonald's than go and make people think that I'm doing this because I need work. You can get work doing anything, anywhere. You can't make music. And that's one thing my father taught me. My parents taught me. And my father worked, after he retired, he was in a big hospital in Long Island as director of security, which is now Northwell, big system. He said, you have to have the same respect for the person who cleans the bathroom as you do for the CEO of the hospital. And he learned that from the police department. There's always a higher up. It's always. And I learned that. And I think it's a very important inner concept to have that respect for everybody who's part of what you're doing. And my teacher used to teach that. I would say it's about the music. That's number one. You do what the composer wants. And then it goes through you. If everybody plays a little differently. The artistry of all the students when I went to Juilliard in the late 70s and 80s, everybody had their own individual sound based on who they were studying with and the school of sound they came from. It's a very good time. And there were people from all over the world playing and teachers from all over the world. I think that was the golden age, part B. And a lot of those people, we still stay friends, but we all play differently. There's no cookie cutter happening. It's really it was quite a good time. So that's my upbringing. I'm still true to the standards. And I love playing the standard repertoire, which actually feels better to me now than it did before because of working with so many living composers. I see the composers of the past as actual living people and what they might have done, the scores they wrote on pianos that don't exist for us.
Sure.
So I approach a lot of the music with a different sound world for each one based on what they had, but also what we're working with. So it's been an interesting journey. I still love to teach. I love teaching. That's probably just, you have to, it's the next generation. So here we are.
It's funny you mentioned sound. I had like late 1970s through the early 1980s. I worked at Manhattan School of Music, and one point, I was walking by one of the big recital hall, Borden, it used to be called, and Arthur Balsam was in there practicing for an upcoming recital, and he was just playing like the first two or three bars of some Haydn sonata over and over and over again. And it just stopped dead in my tracks, just because of the sound, the sound that this man was producing, just amazing.
I
Um,
mean, even when I'm playing now, I just look at the keys. I'm like, why am I working so hard? The distance between the top of the key and where it's in the key bed, it's not so much. You don't have to do that. You don't have to hit somebody over the head to get the point across. And but there were a lot of unusual times. I mean, I remember playing at school, and David Dubal, fabulous, fabulous teacher, pianist, used to say, everything you like, he said, everything you play is so pretty, so pretty. It sounds so, it's not bad, it's just beautiful. So everything's too beautiful. And I understood what he meant. I needed to put a little bit more punch and bite into things. Adele said to me when I wanted to learn Prokofiev Third Concerto, she came right out and she said, "Dear, your hands are not built for this music."
This was which third concerto again?
Prokofiev.
Oh, Prokofiev.
Then I
Yeah.
learned the second concerto, and I played that with the orchestra at the school from a competition. And I worked so hard, slowly, to build up that bite and that finger dexterity, but the clarity, that it wasn't all just fluid and beautiful. She once stopped when I played a Scriabin etude in sixths or something, I don't know. And, usually Adele would stop you and just really either say it's better, but it could be this, it could be that, or she'd say, "Oh, it's no better than last week," or she'd say, no, dear, this is just, I don't even recognize this piece when you play it." But I played this, and I finished it, and she didn't say anything, and I thought, well, that's that. I might as well pack my bags and move somewhere with my last lesson. I'm probably never going to play a piano again. But she said, "It's interesting, dear." The dear helped. "It's interesting, dear. You remind me of Mr. Levine." I didn't know much about Joseph Levine. I really didn't.
Right.
I was only 17. Just the way you sit a little hunched over the keys with the higher wrist for that, and the fluidity of the sixth, and the way you play it like so easily, it's like a duck to water. It just fits you. It sounds like him. You look like him. Very interesting. I said, "Oh, wow." And she may have said, "I don't know if that means anything to you, but you should, I found his recordings. I bought the LPs and listened." I was like, "Oh boy, it's a little spooky." Then there was a picture of him, and somebody said, "You look like him." No, yeah, it's a little strange. I played the the Paul de Schletzer Etude, Opus 1, number 1, in Copenhagen once as an encore after Prokofiev 2. It's easy to play it as an encore after that. You think you're all warmed up. And someone told me, "You are not playing. Somebody else is playing." This thing of people playing through you I had that experience once at Trollhagen in Bergen, Grieg's home.
Hmm.
And I was brought over to the home there after a competition in Oslo, and I played Prokofiev 2 there too. It was with the Oslo Phil for the competition, and we took a train out to Bergen and went to the home, and I nobody was allowed to touch the piano, the Steinway piano, Grieg's piano. But they asked if I could, and I did. And what did I do when I sat down? I played the concerto. Yeah. And I'm playing the concerto, and I'm like a page and a half into it, and the strangest feeling came over me. I know people watching will say, "This guy's crazy." I'm not crazy. I felt like my hands were there, and everything else just went away. Like I don't know what happened, but I did feel as though someone was playing for me. And the concerto it came out like me, but I didn't feel as though I was in control. It was a very strange feeling. It just sounded so easy and so beautifully. I had no problem playing it. It's just like, wow, I didn't know I can play this like this. And if that'll ever happen again. And I finished playing the whatever half of it, half the passages, and I just stopped. And I just looked at the person who brought me. And I said, "Well, that was interesting." I didn't go into it because I didn't want them to think I was out of my mind. But it happens. I mean, I heard someone singing. I won't mention her name. I told her about it. I heard her singing something she did on Broadway years ago, and I was like, why do I see you, but I hear someone else? Why isn't it not matching? And it sounded like somebody just sang through her. It was the
Well,
oddest thing. She didn't answer it. She probably thought this guy's nuts. But I have, it's a very unusual thing. You know? Who are we to say? You know, okay, enough of that. So,
no,
but that was well
that's
said.
fabulous. Yeah.
And I worked very hard to play Prokofiev 3 and 2 and the Sixth Sonata or whatever. I, I didn't want to lose the fluid, beautiful sound. I know it needed to have more stuff in it. And I worked really hard to get that sound. You know, I would watch Martha Argerich playing. It's like nothing for her, but she has those steely fingers. And now you listen to her, she's 80 something, and she
Yeah.
plays fluidly, beautifully. The playing is gorgeous. And it's like, wow, you know? So I think we just go through stages based on living. And a lot of those things I couldn't do when I studied with Adele, just from living and the struggle that Isaac Stern talked about. It just comes out very organically in the playing. You don't even have to think about it. You shouldn't have to think about it. It should just be very natural. But that takes years. It just takes years. And so, you know, I always notice when there's a difference in my playing when certain things become easier. Adele used to sit down and just play. I was like, how do you do that? Well, I get it now. Now I get it. And it's nice when that happens.
It's funny. I don't know whether you'll find this interesting or not, but 20 years ago, I started to write a biography of Alexander Kipnis, the opera singer. I was writing it with his son, Igor, who I'm sure you knew or came across at some point, very lovely man. And he died, and I set the project aside. But now, for a variety of reasons, it's kind of come back to life again. So I've spent, the last 2 or 3 weeks listening to a lot of recordings of interviews with different people about Kipnis and also interviews with Kipnis. And there was one that I got to, one of these cassettes that was recorded like 25 years ago or something, and Igor Kipnis was talking to his father, and they were talking about different singers. And he said, what do you think of Cesare Siepi? And he says, so Alexander Kipnis said, beautiful voice, very, very handsome man, very big range, but never any change in color. Said everything he plays has the same color, and that was that was one comment that came back about a number of singers. Beautiful voice, but you don't get the sense of color that you get when you're the difference between singing Hans Sachs and Gorna Mans and all kinds of other stuff. If the color doesn't change and the character doesn't change. Anyhow, I just thought it was a fascinating comment.
That's interesting. I'll have students who they'll play, and I'm like, you have to think of yourself as an actor. Go out of the studio and come back in character. So that's part of it. But the sense of color, how you would act a part is the way you play. Yesterday, I told one of the students, your keyboard is your orchestra. You're the conductor. So you have to set the pulse. Your players have to play in tempo and a heartbeat. You can't play faster than the listener. If you play too fast, you lose your listener because their heart can't beat as fast as you're playing, and it doesn't excite them. That's something I had to learn. I know Adele used to say it's too fast, but now I know why. And it's because of the listener's heart rate. You can't play faster than your listener could breathe. I can't breathe to your playing, so it's not exciting. She used to say, you may think it's exciting, but I don't. but that's why. That's why.
Mhm.
It has to
Wow.
be musical. But the thing of color, I mean, I've had different inspirations about color. There's a choral conductor, he's still a friend, his name's Ron Cohen, who conducted the Kennedy Choir, Kennedy High School Choir in Long Island, where I grew up. And he was big about word painting and about how the words have to have certain colors when you sing them as a choir. And it came through. It's like, how do you shape your mouth to get the sound to reflect the color of that word, the feeling of the word? The harmonies have feelings. Why should B flat minor sound like G major? Which is why I think Bach's preludes and fugues are great, because the B flat major prelude book one is bright and cheerful. It's a happy one. The E flat minor is more empty and full of despair. The B flat minor is different. It's sadder and helpless. C major is just very ethereal. So that each one has a certain color and character. So he inspired me on that. The other person I have, who wouldn't say Barbara Streisand, because of the way she not only ends words, you could hear the last consonant to every word. She did word painting. She told stories through sounds. The words had to have a certain feeling and a certain shape of the mouth. She was very natural. I mean, if you start to dissect that, or if I even ever had a chance to speak with her about that, she'd say, I just do it. Or maybe she's consciously aware of it. I don't know. But it becomes instinctive after a while. And your emotional response to a harmony or a note in relation to the notes around it, that's the color. Color, some people have synesthesia. My wife has synesthesia. Everything is in colors. Scriabin had
Wow.
synesthesia. I think
Yeah.
Beethoven, I'm not sure. And so color, Chopin shouldn't sound like Liszt, and Debussy shouldn't sound like Ravel, and Prokofiev shouldn't sound like Rachmaninoff. Every style and composer needs to have its own. You can make the piano sound like 100 different composers based on your touch. If it's more has more bite or it's flatter fingered, the way you shape phrases with your arms and your wrists, all those things. So I agree with you about that. The color is that's what makes everybody have their individual sound, of course, but it does grab you. I was like you said, you were very grabbed by Archer Balsam's playing because it had that ear-catching communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So may I ask you also about being a composer? Because in addition to being a pianist, you are also a composer. So
Uh,
I don't even know what to ask about it, but how does that all work?
Nothing to ask. I don't consider myself a composer, honestly. I arrange. I took Chopin's Minute Waltz and turned it into a Christmas piece called Christmas in a Minute for singer, piano. It's been orchestrated by Kermit Poling. And now for choir, I turned it into a choral piece. I took the 12 Days of Christmas and turned that into a choral piece. I took pieces for Hanukkah and turned it into a Hanukkah fantasy, orchestrated by Lucas Richmond. The only pieces I did compose when I was very little, I wrote some pieces, but I wrote a song called His Touch, based on Touch of God. Not been premiered yet. Lucas Richmond orchestrated that. I wrote some other songs. I also wrote 3 psalms from the Bible for SATB choir, a cappella. One is SATB Divisi, the other 2 are double choir. Elegy of Anne Boleyn for choir is based on anonymous text. So I like writing choral music. And then during COVID, I wrote, for the first time, I really wrote piano pieces. Well, I also wrote something for SSA and choir, Hey Ho, the Wind and the Rain, from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, because I loved Arthur Frackenpohl's setting of that for choir. So I wrote my own and performed a lot by children's choirs. But I wrote 3 reflections: reflection of justice, reflection of freedom, reflection of equality, based on figures of American history. And they're for piano. And then I had them orchestrated by a student of mine, Harrison Sheckler, who studied with me at Brooklyn College, getting his DMA now in Arizona. And I actually performed The Reflection of Justice with Dallas Symphony with another work about Ruth Bader Ginsburg that Ellen Taves Willick wrote for me and Denise Graves to do with the orchestra. So that was back in 2021, just after the slow release of COVID silence. So I wrote 3 reflections and a few other pieces, a little sonatina, but that's about it. There Shines a Light Ahead, a nice choral piece based on the C major prelude of Book 2 by Bach with the prelude of Book 1 and Ave Maria. So that's for soprano, chorus, and piano. So there may be other things. I mean, I'm listing them because that's how few pieces I composed. So I don't consider myself a composer except for a few pieces and arrangements, but that's about it. I arranged a lot of Neil Sedaka's piano concerto, Manhattan Intermezzo, kind of beefed up the piano part and brought it to him, and he said that's fine. I performed that. And a lot of pop songs. I took over a dozen of songs that David Foster was part of, either composing or the recording, whatever. Loved those and made them piano solos. And also the entire first album of Josh Groban's debut, I made all the into piano solos transcriptions, with a few of the second album he did. And Closer, that recording, some beautiful pieces like and the prayer, You Raise Me Up, or whatever. A lot of those songs. I enjoyed doing that. That was a period of time in the mid 2000s that I did that. And then the Steinway Christmas album, I put some of my arrangements in that. Anne Hampton Calloway's Christmas Lullaby, David Foster's My Grown Up Christmas List, Old Lang Syne, The Christmas Song of Mel Torme. I love the Christmas music. So that's basically the extent of what I do with composition. So either choral or a few original pieces, but arrangements of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not a too
basically,
like those guys.
I'm just laughing because you said, "Oh, I really don't do much with composition," and then you reel off a big list of all the stuff
Yeah.
you've done.
Yeah, but that's nothing. I mean, I can't make a living with any of that. It's just it's hobby stuff, to be honest. It's not compared to like composers like Lucas Richmond and Peter Boyer and Ken Fuchs and Bill Bolcom and James Lee and all these people writing a lot of pieces. But I've always loved pop music and all the records. So it never dawned on me that I should separate that from what I'm doing. Of course, people have said to me, well, if you do that, you can't do that. If you play Gershwin, you can't play Beethoven. I'm like, no. I've had pieces written for me by pop people. Jimmy Webb wrote a concerto for me, a nocturne for piano and orchestra. Melissa Manchester's new concerto 5-movement piece called Awake. And hopefully we'll be able to announce a world premiere of that for next summer. Fingers crossed. And it's an interesting piece. I got to know her just through social media. And, Melissa Manchester, for people who know who she was, she started out doing a lot of singing with Bette Midler and Barry Manilow, and then Clive Davis built her a name on her own at Arista Records, and she did a lot of songs that were big charts. And I invited her to come on during COVID, some of the concerts I did online out of my house or from the Sonata Piano Camp up in Vermont. We do it out of the house. Everything was on Zoom. And she attended the concerts, and she wrote to me and said, your playing was beautiful. I loved the Beethoven and Appassionato. I said, oh, do you know it? She's like, what do you mean, do I know it? I grew up with classical music. My father was a bassoonist in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. I was there every week. The whole family grew up with classical music. I had no idea. So she really knew her stuff. And so I said, how about writing something, So she did. So it's interesting how a lot of these people started out classically. And Neil Sedaka started out classically. He was a student of Adele Marcus.
Really? It's funny, just about a week ago, I happened to see a video of him just like sitting down at the piano. It was like a 3 minute thing on YouTube or something.
Yeah, he did a lot of that
Completely
during COVID.
charming. Yeah. What a charming man.
Oh yeah, I mean he was a classical pianist. There's a few audios of him on the WQXR website. 1956, he was a kid, and he won a competition in New York. And yeah, that's some jury they had: Yasha Heifetz, Arthur Rubinstein, Leonard Rose, Abram Chasins, best high schooler musician, high school. And he played on QXR, third movement Prokofiev, third piano sonata. I mean, it's incredible. And some Debussy. And he went pop. He went pop.
Mhm.
He was making lessons with Adele Marcus, and he showed up one day, and he said he and his friend sold lots of records in London, and he was on the road doing that. So classical roots. Really knew their classics. A lot of the pop people, like Keith Emerson became a friend. Peter Tork became a friend. He wrote something for me. He was rattling off things about Schumann and Janacek. I was like, how do you know this?
Yeah.
These guys, they knew their roots were, you'd see them, doing pop stuff, or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or the Monkees, Peter Tork. I'm from classical roots. And that's why the music was good, because they had that foundation. Would have been good anyway, but having the foundation probably helped.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, what's coming up next? What for you? I mean, both in
So,
terms of concert schedule and also recordings. What's
mhm.
up the pike?
Well, the last recording that came out was the Peter Boyer Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue with the London Symphony. Came out in February of this year, around the time of the centennial of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. And next month is a recording that we did last year in Arizona with True Concord Voices and Orchestra, Eric Holton conducting, of Jake Runestad's Dreams of the Fallen, which was another commissioning project I did about a decade ago, all about veterans returning home from war who survived war and the experiences they have trying to get back into the community. Powerful piece. The text is by a veteran of the war, Brian Turner. And Jake did a wonderful job taking Brian's poems and making it into a piece of music. So that recording is coming out through Reference Recordings next month. The Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue continues the 50-state travels. And the first bookend of that was Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue Centennial this year. On the other end will be America at 250. So the orchestra is participating, and we can add orchestras still to this coalition of orchestras. We have 54 orchestras in all 50 states, can go through 26, 27. After that is James Lee III. He's a fabulous composer. He's going to be the composer in residence with Baltimore Symphony this coming year. And I wanted something to reflect the centennial of Gershwin's Concerto in F in 2025. So I said, concerto in whatever you want. He says, well, I pick A. I said, why A? First thing I think of is A major, but being a composer, he's a creator. And he said, A for America. I said, oh, perfect. So it will be a 25-minute, 4-movement work with just reflecting a lot of American dance and melody. And he's just a wonderful composer. So right now I'm the full of brush man, going door to door trying to sell the piece. It's always a challenge, but luckily it's funded, and so I don't have to ask orchestras for money like for the Boyer. That's the first 50-state project without buy-ins from the orchestras. They don't have to pay toward the composer's fee. Same thing for James's work. So that's coming up. When I'm hoping for 2025 sometime, there is interest with an orchestra to perform it and record it. But I'm just waiting from a few places to hear it. These things take time. They just take time because they have a lot of other things on their plate. So I've learned the art of patience, which is not easy, but you have to be. You have to be.
Yeah.
So that's coming up. Jake's piece, Melissa Manchester's piece. There may be a Swedish composer's concerto to bring to the U.S. We have to see how that's happening. That's a project that's being funded through other sources, because it's hard for me to sell too many projects at one time, because then you go into the same people. They're like, well, you came to me with that, and now you're coming to me with that. I don't know. Just like, you can't knock on the door and bring two different kinds of toothpaste. They'll be like, well, what do you want me to do? You know. So I'm very careful, can't overdo. There's a piece I'd love to record one day is Daniel Pertu's Planet's Odyssey. And that really should be recorded. That's, orchestras that have done the host planets too many times have an alternative. Is this Planet's Odyssey? It's a piano concerto, and it deals with the sciences of the planets. It's the climates, the environment, the temperatures, all variations on a main theme, the main theme being the creation of the universe. And I asked him for that as a project I had in mind for 20 years, and he was the one to do it. So Daniel Pertu, Perttu, he's fabulous, and the concerto is really very special. Has a lot of color, a lot of everything. It's a really good piece. So these are all the things that I'm looking forward to, and things that need to get done. And we'll just keep going.
And meanwhile, do you teach at Brooklyn College still? Or?
I do. It's the Conservatory of Music at Brooklyn College. I'm always trying to recruit students, because everybody's, it's not like the old days where you had a constant stream of people coming into schools. There are more schools now available, especially a lot of students who want to stay in state to save tuition, scholarships. So, there's more choices for them. It's not like, I want to be a pianist, I got to go to New York. It's not really the way. And people could get wonderful educations and carve a niche in their lives and make careers in many ways today. And that's what Adele Marcus used to say is, it's not just about trying to play in Carnegie Hall. There are many ways to have a career in music. And her students certainly did that. But Brooklyn College has this beautiful new conservatory. It's only a few years old. Beautiful Steinway pianos. The concert grand's gorgeous. The concert hall is nice, and it's really close to the city, and the education is good. It's the City University of New York. It's a solid, grounded university education with the music, and they offer great programs there for scholarships. The Macaulay program, the President's scholarships, and the music department has some funds, not a lot, but tuition there isn't as high as other schools, so that already is like having a scholarship. So we have really good people to work with, and I've been there 25 years or more, and had some really interesting students coming in and out of the doors.
Well, I think I told you once, my uncle was Sam Levinson. There used to be a concert hall there.
Levinson, of course.
Yeah.
I didn't remember you told me that. Sam Levinson, of course.
Yeah, in fact, I just had dinner with his son yesterday, my cousin. But I know
don't know what
Sam.
happened with the statue they had of him, the busts they
Yeah,
had.
there was a bust of Uncle Sam there. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. How do you like
yeah,
that?
yeah. But yeah, I remember there. I don't know if there is still a concert hall named for him, but there was, there.
It was. It was also Gershwin was the hall, recital hall. It's all changed.
Mhm.
The new building they have now, uh, a recital hall. It's different. It's all quite different.
But it
So
sounds like it's doing great.
yeah, I mean, we always try to get more students to come there, because they're going in so many different directions now, uh, which is tough. All the schools, a lot of the other schools too in CUNY, they're all feeling it, and people
Yeah,
going to other parts of the country where they didn't have that before. And it's when I was younger, it was the dream, Horowitz from Rubinstein and those guys, I'm going to be a concert pianist. I want to have a career like that. That was what we thought. And I think that's evolved in a different direction. The reality of that has maybe changed a little bit. There isn't that much room to do that. And I've done a lot of commissioning projects just because I wanted to do work in the concert hall, but I wanted to do something different. I also realized that we were very lucky to have so many wonderful piano concertos from the 18th and 19th, 20th centuries. And now in the last 40 years, we need to have more. So that's what propelled me to the desire to cultivate a whole new roster of works for piano and orchestra and chorus. I've done 3 in that genre. I mean, we had Beethoven Choral Fantasy. Movement of a Busoni Concerto, hardly played. Beethoven Choral Fantasy was the one played the most. The Rio Grande by Constant Lambert, not played as much. But Beethoven Choral Fantasy, I said, we need more works for piano, orchestra, and chorus, because I love chorus. So Bill Bolcom wrote the first one, Prometheus. Then Jake Runestad, Dreams of the Fallen. Then an Iranian composer living in London now, who was a part-time pharmacist, Farhad Pupel. He wrote for piano, orchestra, and chorus. That's another piece I want to get recorded. The Legend of Bijan and Manijeh. And it's based on a Persian story. That's what I asked him for. I said, Persian story. If you're going to write something, that's what you need to do. And it's a gorgeous piece. It's absolutely beautiful. Premiered it with Robert Franz conducting the Windsor Symphony in Canada, and played it with Pete Chorale. And it's with Joe Calkins. It's a really fabulous piece. So that's got to get out there too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many things to do. I find that my initial dream of, go to Juilliard, make a New York debut, win competitions, get a manager, recordings, your career. It's just not, I don't know if that's the reality or what we thought was the reality, but the way it all evolved was actually in many ways much more fulfilling. I mean, the New York debut I did do. Review was great. Got some management, and then had managers over the years. I mean, there's just so much they could do if everybody's playing the same repertoire, So doing all the commissioning projects has been very soulfully fulfilling, very inspiring. Working with living composers it just gives you a different mindset about how you approach the old standard pieces, makes them much more alive, more fresh, spontaneous. So I have no regrets. I think having done all the commissioning projects has been a really nice thing to do. Even Peter Schickley wrote a PDQ Bach concerto. That was his last piece, actually. Top pieces, Burt Bacharach concerto, the Monkees concerto, the Peanuts concerto. I had fun. You gotta have fun doing it, and it can't feel like it's a grind. It has to feel brand new every day. I try to do that. I mean, sometimes you have a slower day or whatever, and these things just take years. It just takes years to get things done. So, but I'm happy. I think it's all been good. I mentioned Lucas Richmond earlier. He wrote a concerto that's it's just fabulous. I say that's the concerto Bernstein never wrote, but it's really Lucas's piece. It's terrific. Those pieces, Ken Fuchs's piece, Lowell Lieberman's third concerto, really blessed. Daniel Poor's concerto, the Afinitas concerto. There's been so many wonderful composers, all the Zwillik pieces. I feel blessed that God gave me the strength to do these things, because it's not easy. It's really not easy. But at least I know that there'll be repertoire for the future. That to me is very important, because I was lucky to get all those pieces. Here's Rachmaninoff's second concerto. Wow, thank you. How did it happen? What made that happen? Leroy Anderson's concerto, love the piece. Howard Hanson's concerto, hardly played, another great piece. There's so much out there. But I wanted to make sure that at least from this first quarter of a century, there'd be enough there for pianists in the future to draw upon, to perform. I don't expect all these pieces to be heard a lot because that's just the way it is with new music. But I do hope in 50 years they will be.
Hmm. Well, it's fabulous. It really is. So I've taken about an hour of your day, and on a day when you have a concert tonight, right?
It's a pleasure. Concert's tomorrow
Yeah.
night, so I'm
Oh, okay. Well, so we could talk.
I'm
We could talk
good.
another hour.
Oh, but for 4 hours.
But any other topics you want to delve into, or anything else you want to talk about?
I think I really just spilled the beans. I don't know. I think it's as you get older, you start to think about what you're leaving. And I think it's important, that the traditions that I was taught by Adele Marcus about sound and about the composers and all the repertoire added. Um, I'm happy, and there's more. There's more to do. I mean, I'm always trying to think of new things to do. And I do write to different people about them and it's not their thing but we've done okay up until now. For every 10 no's, there's a yes. So
Hmm.
that's okay. And the Peter Boyer folder on my computer, it's going to explode. There's just so much that had to be done for that. And looking up high school orchestras, university orchestras, community orchestras, music festivals, summer camps, professional orchestras. It's the Rhapsody National Initiative. I probably would have to say that would be the most successful of all the projects, only because it's not just about the music, but it deals with a country that comes together through the power of music, with orchestras and musicians from all walks of life, whether they're kids or they're pros. In 2 weeks, I'm playing it with Carl St. Clair conducting the Pacific Symphony Orchestra. It can't really get much better. That's a fabulous orchestra. If they were called the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra, well, whatever, but they are a fabulous orchestra. And Carl is, for me, one of the most inspiring musicians I've ever worked with. And he's a guy you could just talk to and he's like, hey, man. But then he gets up and he'll conduct and he's like, God. It's just an incredible, all encompassing human being. And so I'm
What's his last name again? I'm sorry. What's his last name
Carl,
again?
Carl St. Clair. Carl St. Clair. He's been with them for decades. He's slowly coming out of his position and they're grooming other people in a way and see what happens. But he didn't want to just quit cold turkey. He wanted to make sure that the organization, like his family, is in good hands. Oh, I didn't even mention this one. In February, Carl and I are doing the world premiere of Adolphus Hale Storch's Third Piano Concerto,
Okay.
which is, he's in his 80s. What an incredible piece this is. So I'm just kind of finishing learning it. And it'll be interesting because Carl likes his music. He's going to do a really good job with this. It'll be interesting to see how that piece comes to life. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough.
Well, I
If
thank you.
no, au contraire, as they used to say in the cartoons. So, um, no, it's terrific. So I'll let you know where we go with this. If I have any questions or things, I will clearly get back to you. But
Sounds great.
this will be great. It really will.
Awesome. I'm so
So,
thrilled. Thank you for taking your time to let me share a lot of this journey with you. It's exactly what it is. Everybody has a different story a tale to spin from Webb. Uh, and I hope that your viewers will enjoy it and kind of get a glimpse out of what a life in music, other than what they're used to seeing, is like.
right. I'm sure a lot of people will love it and benefit from it as well. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Barry, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And enjoy the remainder of your time in Maine. After Maine, you come back to New York,
I'll
back
be back
home.
Sunday. Tuesday, I'll be driving out to do the Pennsylvania premiere, of the Boyer with Stephen Gunzenhauser, dear old friend. We've worked together in Lancaster. And he has the Endless Mountain Music Festival in Pennsylvania, which is a professional ensemble. A lot of his friends from his Pennsylvania and Delaware Symphony days. I'm sure he's got a great group there. And we're doing that, and then we're going to go up to Corning, New York to do Rhapsody in Blue the night after. So we'll have a good time. I haven't seen Stephen in, years. It'll be a nice reunion. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Yeah, and take care, and I'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Bye.